Welcome to Florida Climate Week. My name is Dane Myers, and I'm so enthusiastic to be getting to share with you at this year's conference. So I'm a songwriter and a musician and a videographer, and a lot of my work is inspired by what's going on with climate change. And for a lot of us who care about this issue, especially those of us who work in this space, it's really normal. I think a lot of us experience either jadedness or climate anxiety or climate grief, or just like being scared about the future. And so what I want to do today is I want to share about my creative process for making songs and how my songwriting has helped me understand how to be effective in doing climate work and how to not get bogged down and discouraged by what can sometimes feel like the lack of progress. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my history as a songwriter. And so anyway, I have been making songs for 12 years or so, and I've produced either for myself or other artists over 100 songs, maybe over 200 songs, I don't know. And I've released 3 albums along the way. This year, I made a commitment to produce a song each week. And so for the last 40 weeks, since last October or so, I've done 40 or 45 songs, which I'm really excited about. And I did this because I wanted to just really live in the creative process. I didn't want to get too bogged down in editing and perfecting the last, 10, 20% of a song. I wanted to just get really comfortable with making things. And I think that's really helped me learn about my creative process this year. This journey has given me confidence in trusting the creative process. We're going to talk about what that means later. It's also helped me understand that progress is almost never a linear process. The last thing that I've learned through this journey has been how to find my role in this big thing, how to find my voice, how to find where I fit in, where I can feel like I'm not taking on too much, but I'm also contributing in line with my potential and my abilities. So those are the things I want to try to convey to you through this presentation and how you can experience that as well. So first, I want to read to you a quote from one of my favorite authors, Tyson Yunkaporta, who is an Indigenous author in Australia, who has really brought together like Western thought and Indigenous thinking around the topic of sustainability. And this quote I'm going to read to you, he's talking about complex problems like solving climate change and how applying a silver bullet solution or even just an ideology, these are really complex problems. They're super interdisciplinary. They're spanning from geopolitics to economics to spirituality even to, there's just like as kind of interdisciplinary as you can think. And so if you're someone that has a solution, like I really love the idea of pricing carbon. We all have these solutions that we sort of cling to that help us focus our energy towards accomplishing something, even if it's not the whole picture. But for this presentation, I want us to all take a deep breath. And whatever that is, whether it's electric cars or if it's carbon capture or if it's afforestation, whatever, solar, whatever it is that brings you a lot of hope, I want us to actually let that go in this session. And the reason for that is that we know that this is a really complex problem, not just to solve. You may say we have all the solutions we need to solve climate change. And I agree with that. I think that's true. But we're on such a tight timeline, and especially if we include the aspect of equity in the way that we solve climate change, I think we all need to stand back and say, we actually don't know how this is quite going to all come together and be okay. There's a lot of room for us to admit that we don't have all the answers. And in the creative process or the process of solving something complex, it's really important that we're able to sit in that moment, in that space, and look at the problem in all of its complexity. So anyway, all right, I want to read you this quote from Tyson Yunkaporta now. He says, "Anybody who thinks they've got a solution or they have a plan or a design or anything like that is an idiot. You can't. Dynamic systems don't operate like that. You have a thing called emergence, and we know this. We know the science on it, and emergence is the only thing that can deal with these kinds of complexities. All you can do is foster the conditions for emergence." And I think this is a really beautiful connection to what I'm going to try to say in this presentation, which is that this creative process, this process of emergence, is sort of beyond our ability as contributors to control everything. And so how do we show up and feel like we're contributing while not being able to control what's happening? That's where the real exciting stuff happens. Okay, so before we get into the fun stuff, I want to read you one more quote that really means a lot to me. It's a quote from Jason Isbell, who is one of my favorite songwriters, and he's talking about the creative process, and he says, "I would rather just let the songs be the type of songs they want to be. That doesn't mean I'm going to let them run loose. I'm going to corral them. That's my own work. That's my own job. And I'm definitely going to make them show up. I'm going to bring them out of the ether, whether the songs want that to happen or not. But if the songs would like to come out of the ether wearing a dress, I'm not going to make them change clothes." I thought this was such a great way to say, I'm showing up to the table, not really controlling. I don't even know what success looks like. I don't know what a sustainable world looks like exactly. I don't have this figured out. And I'm showing up to bring that sustainable world out of the ether, however it appears. That's emergence. Okay, so now we're ready to make art. What I want to do is show you some of my previous projects and just show you behind the curtain of my experience making this and how that created the end result. And then what we're going to do at the end is I'm going to actually create a new song in front of the camera and describe to you kind of that process as it's happening in real time. So we'll leave this presentation with a song that didn't exist before we sat down to make this video. So one of my favorite projects I'll start out with is a song called Clouds of Different Colors. Somebody had educated me about Florida sugar burning and how sugar burning in South Florida has created a blatant environmental justice issue facing the Glades communities. And that's because the fields here are only burnt when the wind blows away from affluent neighborhoods and when the wind is facing black and brown neighborhoods. And that's a problem because the ash that falls from these sort of pesticide-rich sugar fields goes up in the air and falls down. They call it black snow, but it's actually ash from the sugarcane. And when I was there, it got on my car seat, it got in my hair. It's very real. And yeah, like these people live with this 8 months of the year. And so there was something there that I could really sink my teeth into telling the story of, but it also wasn't my story. I was this outsider coming into this world, into this place that I hadn't belonged in and didn't really know. So I was there to kind of highlight someone else's story. I didn't know how to do that. I had never done something exactly like this before through a music video and a song. So let me play you some of the song and just to get you grounded in what it looks like. And then we'll talk about some highlights of that and what this song taught me about creating change in general. All right, so here's the song.
This is from the front door of my home, but this is the normal Saturday morning, and this will continue on throughout the day.
Windows have to stay closed. The blinds are supposed to be closed also, even when they're not burning. But this teacher, she was like the cool teacher. So she would like open them sometimes, have light come in, make it like fun for us. Usually we just see smoke. Yeah. We don't really see the flames. But they were like so close to the school where like when you're looking out a window and you're like such a young person, you're thinking we're about to burn up. Some people had like started having panic attacks. They were like, oh my gosh, I call my mom, I want to go home. When we go on field trips, there's like the gallons of Ziploc bags, full, 4, 5, 6 of them, inhalers, really? Medications.
Do all the kids have asthma?
Yeah, it's like 5, 6 bags of those things that you just pack like filled, like big, like you can't put any more in there.
Woke up in this city where clouds are different colors and teachers board up the shutters so students can't see the flood and the flames outside the window. The snakes running for cover. This playground is an oven, it's covered in the Orwellian. 2 billionaire brothers got profits deep in my governor's pockets and couldn't stop it. Just blind eye sockets turned by my government. We subsidize this suffering. Darker than black ash, black students are covered
in my backyard. We have the train system that carries the cane from one place to another. We also have sugar cane in my backyard. And as you see by my hair blowing right now, that the wind is blowing. So if they burn today, everyone that's live right here will be affected by the burn of the sugar cane in my backyard.
Left with no choices. pellets of poison. Her soil's her fortune, her soul is exploited. That's why we voted for Nikki Fried, who had us believing she'd use her position as commissioner to make them stop burning the tops of the crops and switch to green harvesting. The problem was, as soon as she took office, she promptly forgot those promises she made when she had this whole community vote for her. And now she's running for governor. Whoa. The PR team, they showed us to say what's up. The legal team made all of it pro forma. The marketing team built everything up with syrup. So we don't have to tell you to eat this and shut the f*** up. There's no peace of mind. You belong in my system where being poor is a crime. Capital is your prison, you puppet. Your price to me isn't nothing. How about your question, your karma, your conscience, your co-op, your politics? All of it to me is just economics. I can't afford to keep you lost in my environment. No, I'm not starting a green harvest. My profits are pig promise. We went straight from slavery to enslaving the free market.
He asked for a 30-mile buffer, just like the area on the east, the people's in Loxahatchee and Wellington, the ones that have more money, the ones that skin is lighter than mine. Am I mad because, they are protected? Absolutely not, because they're humans and they deserve to breathe fresh air. What upset me is you place their life as greater value than you do ours. If you can consider them, you should be able to consider us. You should feel the same way about the people in the Glades. But unfortunately, we are a city that has been forgotten.
Make no mistake, we own this town. Run this world, burn it down. Make no mistake, we own this town. Pesticides in the gutters and red tide in the waters. Make no mistake, we own this town. Run this world, burn it down. Make no mistake, we own this town. When we spend our lives, we pay their price. We watch them rape South Florida till she bled red tide, while they drain out every drop until the well runs dry, and fill up every inch of soil with some pesticides. Crush these immigrants under their boot heel high, and smother Rosenwald with dark black skies on the horizon. All the while we subsidize them. All the irony on both sides, they're not society. Make no mistake, they own this town. Run this world, burn it down. Make no mistake, they own this town. Pesticides in the gutters and red tide in the waters. Make no mistake, they own this town. Run this world, burn it down. Make no mistake, they own this town.
So as you can see in this video, there's like a blend of documentary style footage, performance clips, there's lots of social commentary in the lyrics change point of view in the song, all the instruments, all the music, the drone shots. Like, I 0% knew that this is what it was going to be when we started. I knew that like we wanted to make something that would bring this idea to light and engage people and entertain them, but it was kind of this complex thing that we just jumped in. It was my buddy Mitch and I got in the car in Orlando with a camera and a drone and my laptop, and we drove to Belglade to meet some activists that we had gotten an introduction to over the phone. And we kind of had some background and knew like what was happening, but we didn't really know where to get a foothold with creatively with the project until we went and met these activists, and we said, let's put a chair in your backyard. They had like sugar cane behind them in the backyard, and I just asked them questions. I just wanted to hear what they had to say. And something sort of magical happened in that moment, which was I got to feel what it was like for this problem to affect someone. So we're all very aware of the problems in climate work. We're pretty educated at this point about what's happening and what the implications are. But there's something very motivating that happens that makes you want to focus on the most important thing. It makes you want to reach for the highest leverage thing that you can. And that is having empathy and getting to experience somebody else's pain. And what I'm really talking about is people on the front lines, like front lines communities. It's real for us. Like, we understand what's happening and what's going through it. But when somebody's kid is breathing pesticides 8 months of the year, and everybody in this community has asthma, and respiratory hospitalizations go up 35% during burn season. It's like they're actively being attacked. And that can really help us tune in on what to do when we listen to frontlines communities. So that without expecting it, that's something that happened at the beginning of this. We're like, okay, we don't know what to do yet, but like we're tuned in here. Like we're there's something here. There's a seed. And so we didn't know what else to shoot. We're like, how do we tell this story? We're, and again, like these activists, Kina and Kamari, they were like, let's take you to the school where they burn this sugarcane right in front of the students' classrooms, where the school board actually leases out this sugarcane area. And so we went to the school and flew a drone around the school and got to see, like for ourselves, how close the sugarcane was to the school. And then they also told us about some other locations. So we were able to kind of keep pulling that thread and keep going and getting footage. And then the last day we got really lucky, and there was a burn that started right next to us, and we had a drone, and we were able to get this amazing drone footage that you saw in the video. So that was just sheer luck. And then we got back to Orlando, and it was time for me to like start putting this together. I had like written probably 12 verses in the car on the way there and back, and at the hotel that night while the files were transferring onto my laptop. And I was trying to find the right perspective. It's like, I didn't know how I related to this issue. It's like, I'm kind of this outsider, and like, what's my lens on this? And so it starts out with, woke up in this city where clouds are different colors and teachers board up the shutters so students can't see the flood and the flames outside the window. So it starts out with me saying, I woke up in this place where all these things are happening. So this is the way that I was trying to find my relationship to what's going on in this story. There was just a lot of days where I was putting in time to this project, and I just could not, it felt like nothing was happening. And so this is like probably the biggest lesson I've learned about solving any kind of complex problem, is there's just going to be large swaths of time where it just feels like you're bad at what you do because nothing's coming together. And I think learning to trust this process is the key to doing anything creative or solving anything complex. It's like every time you sit down to try something, it's an experiment, and your job is to run the experiments. Your job isn't to make the experiment work out. Your job is to just run through them and find the things that do work. And so, yeah, anyone who's worked in climate knows that like most of the time you're not getting a rewarding result, and you have to be able to accept that and be okay with that. I have a friend who I think is like a master painter who did the artwork for this song. And one of the things he always tells me is when he's painting, his only goal is to try to notice something new that he never noticed before about his process of painting. I think that's such a beautiful way to approach something creative, because you want to grow and you want to take something away from your efforts, but you also can't control what it is that you make necessarily. So if you can just focus on learning something new, noticing something new, I think that's a really noble goal. There's this verse in the song that I think is really powerful, and it says, "You don't get peace of mind. You believe in my system where being poor is a crime. Capital is your prison, you puppet. Your price to me isn't nothing. Not about your question, your karma, your conscience, your come up, your politics. All of it to me is just economics. And I can afford to keep you lost in my environment. No, I'm not starting a green harvest. My profits are peak. Promise we went straight from slavery to enslaving the free market." This was a big transformation for me. And this was the thing that I was noticing as I was making this, is it was like, I've been so good at seeing both sides of most issues because I have the privilege of seeing multiple sides of an issue. But when you go to a place like this and you're like, yo, kids on the school bus all have asthma, we clearly have to do better than that. If there is another side of a sugar industry, that there's some reason that they can't green harvest or what have you, it's not profitable, whatever. At some level, as human beings, we have to be able to say, our kids aren't going to get asthma and cancer. Like, we have to.
Yeah, so let's just crack open a song and try to make something right now. I want to do this because instead of looking back at something I've already made, I think it'd be really fun to go through making something and point out some of the things along the way that I think are helpful with climate work. So in many ways, we're not generating anything. Like, I'm reacting to this music, and the initial material that comes out connects in my brain to some other piece of material. And the job that we have in front of us is to do something and see where it goes and pull that thread and change course as we go. The thing that I notice a lot about this creative process is it's like you can either dance or crawl through it, but you're going to go through this process if you're going to make something. And I think about that a lot with climate work is it's like I actually want to enjoy the process. I don't want to just be freaked out all the time. Like, I want to be able to attract people to this movement, and yeah, I want to process the grief that's going on here, and this is really tough, but like I want to try to make this as much of an adventure as I can. So I just heard this sliding melody, and you can tell I have an idea here, but I don't know what this is exactly at this point. So I'm like, okay, cool, that's an idea, that's a start. So I'm kind of pulling from the sliding melody or the chords in the guitar, and then I'm thinking about like this idea of, you know, how much more real things are when they're in our own lives. Like, all that I can care about is things in my own world. I mean, I don't think it should be like that, but I think that's kind of real. And this makes it look like I just jumped right into the second verse here. But the truth is that I'm cutting out stuff that's boring, because there's sections of this video that are like 5 minutes of me just like singing the same thing over and over again, and I spared y'all from that. But it's really important that everybody feels like this is part of the creative process, because, you know, if we don't honor those times where we don't know what we're doing, then like when we sit down and don't know what we're doing, we feel like we're doing it wrong. But like, that is the process. Like, I'm just showing you the moments where something actually moved. I was watching this Chance the Rapper interview one time I think he was at Harvard, and they were talking to him, and they said, why don't you make a song about Black Lives Matter? And he said something about that, like, if he made something on the nose, you know, he could do that, but that it's not as strong. And I think when we tell stories, people use a part of their brain to listen to us that's very old, that comes from a very old place in our evolution. And that's why I think people will listen to stories in a more receptive way than they listen to facts or they listen to ideologies. And so I've stopped trying to make propaganda, I used to call it. It's like things I believed were really like helpful, but they were kind of me like putting my opinions into song form. And I don't believe in that so much anymore. Like, I think now the thing is to like let it come out of the ether, wearing a dress or a cowboy hat or whatever, you know.
All I think that I can care about is everything in my own world. Way to this world, in outer space coming unfurled. I wish that I could go to Mars and it'd be set up. Don't tell Earth that's my girl. Starting over, I'm too used to starting over. We're still trying, but it's over. We're still trying, it's not over. I'm not crying while I'm sober. Let's just make it October. I know we can do it.
That I know we can do it felt so good to say. This is not about me packaging my opinions into song form. This is about me exploring my psyche through music and through art.
We can do it. All I can feel here on walls was we're pushing through it.
In a way that hopefully contributes to other people exploring their psyches. Like, I used to work in the solar industry, so I understand that the work to be done is like the logistics and the installation and like the nuts and bolts and like actually like doing the work. But the thing that I always come back to is that why isn't the work getting done? The work isn't getting done because we can't get consensus in our country about what we need to do. Like, we can't even agree on a virus, you know? And now we're trying to agree on climate change, which is definitely not bringing people together yet. And so I think the question is like, how do we bring people together around this issue? And it's like by being authentic. It's like by sharing our experiences in a way that attracts people to take an interest, and by making it easy for people to connect to it. And so I think that's what the process of music making is like making it easier for people to connect to experiences that you've had, making it easier to share experiences with people. And that's what we're doing. And I think that's why this is important. We don't know what's going to work. We just keep showing up and we keep trying, and there's ups and downs, and there's good arguments for why what you're doing doesn't matter. Like, if you're working in policy, people are going to say like, oh, well, the private sector does everything. And if you are working in the private sector, then people are going to say like, oh, capitalism is the problem. And if you're working in solar, people are going to tell you should be working in wind. And it, you know, just keep going and keep learning and keep putting words on the page and showing up each day, giving yourself what you need to do your best work, and just follow through as passionately as possible.
Sleeping beside the river dreaming, willow trees over deep sleeping, kitchen floors. They think I've been drinking, but all I am is yours. If you don't give your all, there's no second chances in this crazy universe.
Alright, well that's the video, y'all. If you made it this far, I definitely appreciate that. I've never made a video for presenting at a conference like this, so I tried to do something really different and take a risk and do something interesting, and I hope it paid off for you. But all of the ideas we talked about in this video, like not knowing what you're doing and showing up and letting something emerge anyway, those ideas definitely applied to the process of making this video itself. So I hope you feel empowered to go out there and be resilient and trust the process of whatever you're working on, to understand where you fit your voice in this whole big equation of sustainability. I hope you have a little more information about that. And then also, I hope you can appreciate how nonlinear change is and how nonlinear progress is. And I hope that that gives you hope that even if it seems like things aren't moving, things are moving and you're part of it and we need your help. So thanks again for watching this. If you want to hear the finished song, I'll put a link up right here so that you can go find the finished song from this presentation. And thanks again so much for having me at Florida Climate Week. Take care. as a creative and as a climate activist, it's important. It's not just nice. It's important that we look for moments of joy as often as we can, and that we try to make this process as much of an adventure as possible. Giving ourselves space to feel the grief and process the weight of what's happening is absolutely important. And there's not always going to be joy to be found in every moment. But it's important that we search for that joy, because we want to attract people to this process. This is ultimately something that requires lots of people to get involved. And so my commitment is to try to find the adventure in spite of the nightmare. So the thing that I learned during this process was I wanted to take this thing that was happening to Kina and Komari, and I wanted to zoom out and look at humanity's capacity for doing something like this at a broad level, because this is a really clear-cut case of environmental justice, but it reveals to us the human potential to let powerful groups compromise and externalize cost onto not powerful groups and onto the environment. And what I mean by that is you have this industry that's able to be profitable because they're not paying the true costs involved in what they're doing. They're profitable because they're not paying for people's asthma medications. They're not paying for people's diabetes that they get. And sure, people have some choice in what they eat and where they live and things like that. But the reality is that I was learning about this capacity for sort of power to hurt people. And so the other thing is I'd like to call whataboutism, which is like you're making something and you're constantly trying to focus on the most important part. Like I was trying to focus on Kina and Kilmari's story. And in the video, I was also really struggling with like, well, there's all these lyrics. Like, what do we have during the lyrics, especially like the chorus is like, make no mistake, they own this town, run this world, burn it down. It's like, what's happening visually during these parts? Because like the activists can't be talking. So what's going to happen? And I was like really reluctant to put myself in the video because it's not about me, and I didn't want it to feel like it was portraying me to be at the center of this issue at all. And so, yeah, there was these moments where I was like, okay, well, the most important thing is here, but like I don't feel satisfied about like, what about this? What about that? What about that? And in climate work, man, we're good at doing whataboutism. Like, well, it's like you have solar, but like, what about the embedded carbon in the solar? Or like, what about the batteries that have to store that renewable energy once net metering isn't around anymore? Or like, what about this? Or what about that? Complex issues are necessarily going to have these kind of compromises and trade-offs as we make progress. But it's so important that as we're taking part in this emergent process, that we have an accepting and open mind as we move towards the finish line. Because if we're editing as we're creating, if we're criticizing as we're building, then nothing will mature. We won't be able to find those new ideas. We won't be able to have those technological breakthroughs. We won't be able to have those breakthroughs internally as we go, because we just have this kind of closed down critical mentality, this kind of Eeyore mentality of it won't work. We have to have this mentality of like, this isn't enough now, and that's okay because we're moving forward. And we don't know how it's going to come together and how it's going to be okay, but that's inherently a creative process. That's like really, I think, what you learn from doing something creative a lot. So for this project, my buddy Mitch and I got in the car from Orlando and drove down to Belglade with a drone and a camera and a laptop. And we didn't really have very much idea what we were going to do at all. I had never made a video like this, like talking about someone else's experiences. Like my songs and my videos have always been kind of from my standpoint. And so when we got asked to do this, I was excited about it, but I knew that I didn't know how to do this. When we met with these activists that you see featured in the video, Kina and Kamari, you see in the beginning of the video that we just started interviewing them. We went to their backyard and I just started asking them questions that I had. Like, I knew some about this, but I wanted to hear what it was like from their standpoint. And they said a lot of things that I had not known. And anyway, I think that this is a lot like how we need to approach climate issues, because the research, the science tells us some about what's going on, but it's important that we listen to frontline communities who are dealing with the strongest impacts of climate change so that we can understand those perspectives, and so that we can really connect with the pain that these issues are causing, so that we can prioritize what to do, like what our work should be. So after we shot their interview, I felt really motivated. I was really aware of how this was impacting them and the stories that they had told about their family and different people around the town that they knew who had suffered from the impacts of this. But I still didn't know what to do. And so thankfully we asked them, what should we shoot? Where should we go and what should we capture? And Kina took us to the elementary school around the corner, which was really interesting because not only did they help get us access to shooting, they knew some people who lived right next to the school, and we were able to go through their yard to the backyard. But they also kind of helped explain how the school was laid out and just gave me some more context. So this school, as you saw in the video, leases out the land around the school to the sugar companies who grow sugar and then burn the sugar in the faces of the students who live there. This is where we shot the footage of Kilmari telling this story about the bags of inhalers on the school bus and about the day that the teacher left the window open. So we shot this footage, and then we went and shot around town, and that's where I got the laundromat footage and the footage of the chickens walking around. And someone told us about this prison that was just outside of town that we should go shoot because it had a burned down church in the middle of it, and it was just a really spooky, eerie place. So we went and we shot that, and we got some of that footage. And then all along this trip, we were trying to get footage of actual burn. And the whole time we were really struggling. We weren't getting that footage. And on the last day, right as we were about to head back to Orlando, we were right next to a field when they started burning. And we got to get this really high quality drone footage of a burn, as it was starting and as it was happening. Then we went back to Orlando, and I sort of didn't know what to do. I had all this footage. I remember feeling really uncomfortable with how to put it all together, because these activists, there was a little bit of pressure because these activists had suffered the disappointment of multiple film crews coming out from all different kinds of production companies to tell this story. And then for one reason or another, the story would never make it out. And so they had busy schedules, and me coming along and being like, let me do another one of these interviews and dig all this stuff back up. They were kind of a little bit reluctant to make time for it. And now I was having trouble delivering. I didn't know how to put everything together. I had not made something like this before, and I was still confused about what's my standpoint in all of this? How do I amplify their voices through my song and music video without making it feel like it's about me? And it just took time. I think this is one of the hardest parts of the creative process, is that no matter how much you want to produce something, you can't just wake up and have a sustainable world tomorrow, or sit down and force a great song to come out. It's this process of sitting with a problem until ideas emerge. But inevitably, our minds wander because they get involved with distractions, I think. There's a long period of time in the creative process often where nothing is working and nothing is going well. And when that happens, whether it's with songwriting or with our activism, I feel not just like a bad songwriter, but I feel like a bad person, personally. And so it's taken a lot of work for me to become more comfortable trusting that process and feeling like my job is not to make something happen that's amazing. Like my job is to continue to show up and pull whatever it is into being, and work with that. So maybe you felt like this is as an activist, like living in this unsustainable world, even though you show up with the intention to build a better future. There's so many days where we just can't see the difference that we're making. So when this happens, I've learned that it's really important that we give ourselves the rest that we need, and then we gently can pull our focus back to the work at hand. So next, let's actually create something from scratch, and I'll kind of narrate the creative process as it goes, because I've shown you a couple examples of things that are already made, but let's see a clip of me making a song, and I'm gonna share what's kind of going on for me as we're making it, and then when we get done, we'll have a completely new song that we never had before, and hopefully it's cool. Let's check it out. The next song that I want to tell you about is a song called The Green Gatsby. And this was a really fun one to make. The premise for the music video was I was living at this place called the Peanut Butter Palace, which was a like solar cooperative house with a food forest in the backyard and a rainwater shower. And the song was just like about celebrating that and like just talking your shit about like getting to participate in this like really innovative space. And so anyway, like the premise for the video was like, let's just have everybody over and have as much fun as possible and film that.
Shout out to Chris Castro. Shut up to this last show. When you see us, you can feel the passion. Ain't even a hassle. Get into this cash flow. We can turn this palace to a castle. Okay, yeah, I'm in Jay Blanche till the lights low. High tech hippie with a nice flow. Got her roped in like a lasso. Real big goals and I'm yelling go lasso. I got fam that I met down at Basel. We got plans they invented at NASA. Blast off and we got fam at the casa. Graham looking yeah like Picasso. Well, my girl's got a drip more fire than Tabasco. She's pretty healthy and she tells good dad jokes. We've been watching what they do in the shadows, working on her neck like Laszlo. What you need that for? A little RAV4 or a fast forward? I just press fast forward, watching Netflix on his dashboard. And this glove box needs a password. Taking rainwater showers in the backyard. So cinematic like it's black bars. Meal plan waiting by the back door. No time for it when we're at war, so it's robo-taxi, cuddle in the backseat. Welcome to the mansion of the Green Gatsby. Boomers ask me if I'm overreacting. They don't see the science, and that's truly maddening. Yeah, but today is a nice day. I just cooked vegan for my friends, ran a 5K. Save 5K off sleeping in the driveway. Put that straight into TSLA. And now it's capital gains, and now I'm back at the palace doing actual things. And I've been active and balanced, and I'm glad that you came. I'd like to welcome you to the new American dream. I got a backyard filled up with edible things, barrels of rain, ain't no label pulling the strings. I'm showing some fangs, privileged to be part of the team as part of some change. I stayed in this lane and it feels amazing.